5 ways to leverage play in your class today. Episode 490.
The 10-Minute Teacher Podcast with Vicki Davis. Every weekday, you'll learn powerful, practical ways to be a more remarkable teacher today.
5 ways to leverage play in your classroom today. If we rhyme anymore, I don't know what to say. But Jill Vialet is with us, and we're going to talk about how we can pull play into our classroom. And this is your expertise, Jill. So how do we start?
The first thing is being just open as a classroom teacher to being a little playful. You know, there's so much content that you're being required to deliver, and so taking the time to figure out how you can bring an experiential element and to really encourage kids to be playful. First, just give yourself permission and go easy on yourself, because as a classroom teacher, you're asked to hold so much. And so I just think taking one more thing on sometimes can feel like the straw that's going to break the camel's back. But what we found is that when teachers really do make the effort to bring play into the classroom and leverage play as a tool for helping kids find themselves, it works really well. And so the 5 areas that I really was going to focus on today are resolving conflicts, self-regulation, empathy, listening, and teamwork. And so start off, the number one thing I recommend for people to go to is Rochambeau or rock, paper, scissors. As a classroom teacher, bringing that in as the all-purpose, no frills, no worry, great problem-solving equalizer, and giving your kids the agency to solve their own problems, it just makes a huge difference. And it's amazing how quickly kids will go to just using that without even having to have any kind of grown-up intervention, and what a huge difference that makes.
Oh, it does. And, I'm at a school now where my principal loves laughter in the classroom, but I have been in circumstances where you almost feel like you have to apologize for uproarious laughter that comes with play.
Right. People stick their heads in, like, what's going on in here? Like, wait.
Yeah, like there's a problem. And it's like laughter is a good thing. Well, I used that today. I have these 2 rolly chairs in my room is what the kids call them, and they want them. And so rock, paper, scissors is a great way to resolve that type of conflict. Okay, what's next?
The second one is self-regulation. One of the things that I found when I was teaching is that you'll have a room full of kids, and if you have 1 or 2 kids who really struggle with regulating themselves, like having the skills and tools to pull it together when they start to have emotions that kind of get out of check, that can derail the whole day. So thinking about different ways to make light of and to normalize that the whole process of self-regulating, that getting the whole class, turning it into a game where you as the teacher acknowledge, like, sometimes I get so frustrated, and when I get frustrated, I'm going to take 5 big breaths, and you do it bigger than life. And obviously I'm talking about working with littler kids here, but like turning it into a game when someone notices that they're feeling some kind of emotion, that they don't feel like they're totally in control of the decisions they're making, and having it be a universal thing, not calling out just one kid to do this, but that every kid is doing it. And it becomes almost a thing that you can laugh about when you catch yourself feeling like you need a moment of self-regulation, and suddenly you're making a silly face and taking in 5 deep breaths. So turning that into a game. Yeah.
Oh, that's great, because you're encouraging metacognition. They're realizing something about themselves. And when they get older, you could talk about, being metacognitive. Okay. Is there a technique that you might suggest for self-regulation with older kids?
The older kids, a little bit of humor. One of the things we've done is like just having a body scan. So talking about it actually in terms of awareness and mindfulness, and giving them permission in the classroom to actually express when they're having feelings. Like when I was teaching, I taught American history in 11th grade. And at some point I recognized that I had a couple of students who, giving them permission to stand up and walk around the classroom and then sit themselves back down, but like giving them that agency. It's not exactly playful, but it's engaged in a different way. With the younger kids, that element of play, that silliness that you can infuse into it, I think that then opens the conversation and normalizes it. With the older kids, you can have a playful approach to it, but also just trying to create opportunities for them to be in their bodies and to take responsibility that are physical. It's not quite as playful, but it's as effective.
So let me ask you this, if this would work. So I have a digital film class, and if somebody gets cranky, it's the end of the day. If somebody gets cranky, it kind of ruins the whole thing. Well, I messed up because I was cranky, and I'm like, kids, what can we do when somebody gets, fussy? How can we kind of deal with that? And one of them went and got this little memory foam unicorn. So we have the unicorn of unity. And if anybody is fussy or cranky, they can either go pick up the unicorn of unity themselves, or then somebody could pick it up and hand it to somebody. And I'm going to tell you, that little unicorn of unity, which is as silly as it could be, has diffused more fussiness and crankiness and totally turned that class around. So would you consider that play?
That's awesome. That's exactly right. Yeah. The definition of play is any activity undertaken for no apparent purpose. So a foam unicorn pretty much squarely falls into the no apparent purpose bucket. So yes.
But I'm going to tell you, it's had a real impact on the classroom for the good. You're the unicorn of unity. Okay, so that was a little side thing, but I was like, oh, maybe that wasn't so goofy. Okay, what's our third?
So empathy. Play is just this incredible springboard for helping kids to feel seen and to see others as being more complicated and multidimensional. I often say that empathy is the ability to suspend your disbelief that other people have the same level of crazy going on in their heads as you have going on in yours. And so for kids, one of the things is different games that involve storytelling or mirroring or pair activities where you just give kids permission to break off in pairs and have conversations. For somebody to tell a story about their own experience relevant to whatever you're talking, have the partner listen and then tell back their story in the first person. And for a kid to hear someone else tell back their story in the first person, it's mind-blowing, because really having someone listen to you like that and to describe your experience back to you and to share the way they see what you told them, it just begins to really create a depth of connection in a playful way where it's not super loaded, but that really begins to create bonds across the more sort of usual bridges.
Yeah, and that reminds me that so often you can tell you've had an awesome class when you take these approaches, when the kids go, is class over now already? When the bell rings and they're not ready. So what's our fifth?
Listening. So one of the great things about games, right, is that to set up a really good game, you go through the rules. You talk about what the object of the game is. And so setting up games in a classroom or at a recess time, whatever, creates an incredible opportunity to review rules and give kids the sort of the boundaries and the expectation of the goals, have them repeat them back to you, because in that moment of play, they are intrinsically motivated to really listen in a deep way to connect them to success. And then as you're doing it, to think about what are the ways in which I'm delivering the goals and the rules and the boundaries in play that might apply to an assignment or an activity that we're doing academically, and to make those parallels, and then to give kids the chance to be the people to actually set the rules and boundaries and goals. And then think about, okay, they've done it now for this game. Well, how might I work with one or two students, maybe who don't necessarily perceive them as leaders, but to have them take on the responsibility of describing the next activity we're going to do in class, and to turn that into a game, and to watch how kids listen to their peers differently than they listen to the more traditional, having the teacher explain what's coming next.
Oh, that is fantastic. I've seen those done at pep rallies and events like that, but using these techniques for dividing into teams is fantastic.
Well, the fifth is teamwork. And so, figuring out what are different ways to playfully engage when you're having kids doing group work. What are ways to break them into groups that break up the normal sort of ways that the kids are connecting? And how do you use play and games to get kids to connect in new ways with new people and then build on those for other classroom activities? They're part of the process. I think there's so much about our educational system where kids don't necessarily feel like they're drivers. And play really does help kids really access their own agency in a way that changes everything.
So Jill, give us a 30-second pep talk about why we need play in our classroom.
We need play because play is a force that makes us human. It helps us feel seen and connected. It helps us be in our bodies. It helps us access delight and joy. It helps us express emotion. It is the thing that I think, as much as cognition, makes us human beings who can fundamentally deal with the truth of our messy interdependence.
Well, teachers, get out there and play. Here's some fantastic ideas, and I would be so interested to hear how you play. So if you've made it through this episode, I hope you'll tweet me on Twitter at CoolCatTeacher, or email me, Vicki@CoolCatTeacher.com, and tell me how you play in your classroom. It's worth sharing these ideas. Thanks, Jill.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast. You can download the show notes and see the archive at CoolCatTeacher.com/podcast. Never stop learning.